Namaste students. In this lecture, we will prove Carnot's theorem. Now, इस लेक्चर में हम कार्नोस थ्योरम को प्रूव करेंगे. आई एम गोइंग टू यूज बोथ इंग्लिश एंड हिंदी mix and match. Mostly we'll keep it in English, but in between I'll also use Hindi so that those who are more comfortable in Hindi, those students of mine, जिन students को हिंदी ज़्यादा पसंद है उनके लिए मैं थोड़ा थोड़ा हिंदी यूज करता रहूँगा. बट if you want to basically understand everything in English, you can also rely on my language, my usage of English. Okay, so basic purpose क्या है इस लेक्चर का? टू मेक श्योर दैट while we are going to prove the Carnot's theorem, we are going to make it easy, concise, intuitive also, and we'll try to have a very good foundational understanding of the concept. ठीक है. अच्छा, Carnot's theorem क्या है, क्या बोलता है? What does it say? What does Carnot's theorem say? It says all reversible engines, basically you consider all of them to be heat engines. We are considering only heat engines here. So all reversible heat engines operating between the same two temperatures have equal efficiency, and no engine operating between the same two temperatures can have an efficiency greater than this. So first part, all reversible engines operating between the same two temperatures have equal efficiency. यहाँ पे ये first section है, let's call it section A. सेक्शन ए में क्या करना है? दो रिवर्सिबल इंजन है, ठीक है. उनमें से ये यही बोलता है कि इफ देयर आर टू टेम्परेचर्स, फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स सपोज देयर इज अ हायर टेम्परेचर TH and there is a lower temperature TL, where TH is greater than TL. So if there is an engine, a reversible engine which is operating between these two temperatures, right, any reversible engine will have the same efficiency if the engine is reversible. That means reversible का मतलब क्या है कि हम उसको उल्टा करके TL से TH एज अ हीट पंप भी यूज कर सकते हैं, ठीक है. अगर इसको हम नॉर्मल इंजन बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ एन इंजन क्या होता है, एक हीट इंजन. बेसिकली नॉर्मली इफ यू कंसिडर अ हीट इंजन, व्हाट डू यू सी? Basically if you take the temperature, higher temperature, it's a source. There is, let's call it a source, and there is a low temperature coming from a sink. So basically the source, the temperature will be constant. For the sink also the temperature will be constant, right? And this TH is greater than TL, of course. Now an engine operating between these two temperatures will get some heat, let's call it QH, and will reject some heat, will extract some heat from the source, reject some heat QL to the sink, and in the process it will give you some work. And we know by the first law of thermodynamics in a modified form, which is basically the conservation of energy principle, QH is equal to QL plus W. Yes? लगे हाथ इसका एफिशिएंसी भी डिस्कस कर लेते हैं, राइट. द एफिशिएंसी ऑफ अ हीट इंजन eta is equal to the amount of work done divided by the heat supplied by the source. Yes. Oh, what is a reversible heat engine? If only I can, that means the same engine can be operated between the same two temperatures, just in the reverse direction. All the arrows will be reversed. It's not possible, however, to have a reversible engine because, of course, in nature, you will always have some dissipating agents, right? For example, a gas stove, right? We can use a gas stove as a normal engine, basically operating between a very high temperature gas flame and the surrounding temperature, right? Basically, we can use that to melt ice, but you cannot use the gas stove in reverse to solidify water into ice. Can you? No. Refrigerator, for example, you can consider that actually it's a reverse heat engine, or you would say call it as like a heat pump, but that's not reversible because of course it can cool down stuff, from within the refrigerator to a temperature much below the surrounding temperature. That means the refrigerator takes on heat from a sink and provides that to the source, which is basically the outside, right, surrounding. So acting in reverse. But again, you cannot use the refrigerator to heat up things, correct? At best, you can turn it off so that the things will be normal. You cannot heat things inside it. You cannot use it as an oven, correct? So these are some examples that reversible engines will not exist. But ideally speaking, reversible engines are those which act very slowly in very tiny steps, so that every tiny step we can consider that can be reversed. Because of the effect of the dissipating agents will be less over tiny steps, right? Okay, now consider for now that reversible engines, ideally speaking, yes, of course, we can have theoretical reversible engines. And if there is such an engine E, then this is the efficiency and this is how the formula works. Note, this formula is from the first law of thermodynamics, right? Which simply, what does the first law say? That any heat supplied to a system is equal to the change in its internal energy plus the amount of work done by the system. That's all. In a different form, this is the first law. Okay. But now, we need to prove Carnot's principle, theorem, right? So, it says all reversible engines operating between the same two temperatures have equal efficiency. Really? Well, let's see. Okay. Imagine I have a source at a temperature TH and a sink at a temperature TL, right? Of course, TH is greater than TL. Now imagine I have two engines, E and E dash. So E will have an efficiency eta, E dash will have an efficiency eta dash. And also imagine that eta is greater than eta dash. That means both of them are reversible, but somehow E is more efficient than E dash. Now, is it possible? Let's understand what makes the situation impossible. If both of them are to be used between TH and TL, the Carnot's theorem says that eta has to be equal to eta dash, right? But we are assuming that eta is greater than eta dash, right? So that means if we are doing a wrong assumption, the outcome must be impossible, right? The conclusion must be impossible. And then we will understand, okay, then we have to make sure that eta cannot be greater than eta dash. And then there is no speciality between E and E dash. So basically, if I assume that eta dash is greater than eta, then also I will have an impossible conclusion. So basically, none can be greater than the other. So both of them have to be the same. That's the conclusion. It's the method of falsification. Okay, the proof is based on the method of falsification. Now let's start. Let's say that the more efficient heat engine E is used as a normal engine, extracting heat Q, let's suppose QH, and let's say that has a unique value Q. Now it will reject some amount QL and will produce some work W, right? Now, if QH is Q, then how much is QL? So efficiency of E is eta. So now we know eta is equal to how much? It's W upon QH. Which is W upon Q? I say that QH is Q. Let's suppose I am extracting Q amount of heat from the source, right? Now, what happens to W? W equals to eta times Q, yes, by definition, right? So W is equal to eta times Q. Clear? Understood? Now the same work, if I supply the same work to the other engine, which I have assumed that it's the less efficient engine, E dash. Now this engine will be taking some heat QL dash from the sink, will be supplying QH dash to the source, right? It will just be acting in reverse. So in this case, what will be its efficiency? If it works the way it is supposed to in normal mode, eta dash is its efficiency. If it works in reverse, its efficiency is going to be 1 by eta dash, which is eta dash in reverse. Okay. Correct? Okay. Now let's understand. We are taking Q amount of heat from the surrounding, and we are basically giving Q H dash amount of heat to the surrounding. Let's say not the surrounding. Let's suppose the source, right? So now we are basically we have created a single engine, which is the result of the combination of the two engines working in reverse. So now we have taken Q amount of heat from the source, and we are giving it QH dash, or let's suppose that is Q dash. Q heat is taken from the reservoir, that is, let's call the source, and we are giving it back Q dash amount of heat, right? Technically speaking, Q dash can be less. So basically, Q dash can be less or equal to Q, right? So basically, if you're taking more heat and giving back less heat, that means some heat got lost to the surroundings for some dissipative agent. That's understood. Or at best, whatever heat we are taking from the source, we are giving exactly that amount back. But we cannot take something and give it greater amount back. Why? That means we are simply creating some energy, which is a violation of the first law of thermodynamics. They say the Carnot's theorem is based on second law of thermodynamics. Well, that is correct in a way, but I see that it is first based on the first law of thermodynamics, then based on the second law of thermodynamics, which we will discuss. Okay. So basically, the second law of thermodynamics is the first law of thermodynamics plus some additional conditions of the directionality of the heat flow, or spontaneous directionality of the heat flow, right? So let's get back, थोड़ा समझते हैं. अभी हमको ये देखना है कि अगर हमारा रिजल्ट ऐसा आया कि फॉर एनी कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ दीज टू इंजन्स, इफ समहाउ आई गेट दैट Q dash is greater than Q, in this case, clearly this is a violation of the first law of thermodynamics. So, or again, the second law of thermodynamics, which says that the heat cannot simply flow from it cannot say, not all amount of heat taken by engine can be converted into work done, right? Well, let's just call it its violation of first law for now. Okay, you can also take that as official answer if you have to write. Okay, it's a violation of the first law. Okay, now let's see if that is the case. Now we have already expressed everything. The work is eta into Q, right? And the Q amount of heat is taken from the sink. Now Q dash, how would you know? We have to compare Q and Q dash. So we have to bring somehow the same terms, right? So let's see. All right. Now let's focus on the other engine, E dash, right? And we need to find the relation. We need to express Q dash in terms of Q. Only then we will be able to compare them, right? So now the same work, which is the output from the first engine, is being the input to the second engine working in reverse. And we know the efficiency of this engine E dash, which is working in reverse, is basically 1 by eta dash, right? So in other words, we can simply say that from the same principle, that eta dash is equal to the same work if it worked exactly the way it is supposed to be, like in the in normal mode, it will be W by QH dash. Since we are taking QH dash as Q dash, we will simply call it W by Q dash. It's just like eta dash reverse will be Q dash by W, right? If I write this, eta dash reverse will be Q dash by W, right? So eta dash is W by Q dash, correct? So basically, when you a reversible engine working as a heat pump will have an efficiency which is the inverse of its normal mode efficiency. That's something you can make a note of, correct? Now from this equation, we can simply say that the Q dash is nothing but W divided by eta dash. Okay, that's eta, not N, right? So far so good. Now compare, now we are able to compare, right? So basically Q dash is equal to 1 by eta dash multiplied by, what is W? And eta into Q. So it's eta into Q. So in simple words, it's eta divided by eta dash multiplied by Q, right? So let's summarize. Q dash, which is being fed into the sink, is equal to eta divided by eta dash multiplied by Q, which is taken from, which is, okay, Q dash is the heat we are supplying back or returning to the source, and Q is the heat we are taking from the source. Okay, that's all. Here, this, because both the engines are, connected to each other, so basically they work as a single engine, and it works spontaneously, right? Just like it should work, because a proper heat engine works on its own, basically spontaneously. It gives us some work output. That's it. But yes, a heat pump, a heat pump will need some extra work to be done. That means it will need some energy supply, whether in the form of heat or by some mechanical work, to pump heat from a low temperature body to a high temperature body, correct? It cannot, it cannot simply spontaneously take heat from, no amount of heat can be taken from a low temperature body to a high temperature body on its own spontaneously. That's the second law of thermodynamics, isn't it? So understand here, the heat that you are supplying here back to this the source is eta by eta dash into Q. Now if eta is less than eta dash, then definitely Q dash is less than Q, and you are okay with it, right? Basically you are basically taking Q amount of heat, and while returning you are returning less amount of heat. That's fine. Eta can be equal to eta dash. In that case, Q dash will be equal to Q, a perfect engine. Whatever heat you are taking from the source, you are returning exactly the same amount. That is feasible. This is feasible. What happens if eta is greater than eta dash? That simply means that the heat you are returning is greater than the heat you have taken. That means there is a net heat that you created, which is Q dash minus Q, which is greater than 0. That means you have created some heat. That means where did this heat come from? That came from the sink, low temperature body, and it is going to the high temperature body spontaneously, which is a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Again, it's a violation of the first law also, because you have created some energy. It's impossible to create energy, right? If you take the sink and the source both as an combined as an isolated system, including the two engines working in tandem, then this isolated system is basically you are creating energy out of the isolated system. It's simply impossible. So it's not just a violation of the first law, also of the second law. So this is impossible. That's why if both of them are reversible, then eta has to be equal to, why not this? It's because, see, there is no reason why you have to use E in normal mode and E dash in reverse mode. You can use the other way around, right? You can also use E dash in normal mode and E in the reverse mode. No reason, right? If you use that, then whatever was here will cause a problem. So both the cases, eta less than eta dash or eta greater than eta dash, gives you problem. So the only way both the reversible engines can work either way would be the condition eta will be equal to eta dash. Hence proved. We have proved the first part already. Yes. So all reversible engines operating between the same two temperatures would have equal efficiency. Now coming to the part B, no engine operating between the same two temperatures can have an efficiency greater than this. So what is the efficiency? So let's define efficiency once again. Efficiency of any heat engine is the it's the work done divided by the heat supplied, QH. Yes. So basically a heat engine takes some heat QH from a high temperature body, rejects some heat, how much? QL, to a low temperature body, TL, and in the meanwhile it extracts some work, so that QH is equal to QL plus W. Yes. Or you can say that W equals to QH minus QL. So eta can also be expressed as QH minus QL divided by QH, which is 1 minus QL by QH. That's our efficiency. It's the general efficiency formula. Eta is equal to QL by QH. But there is a maximum efficiency for an ideal engine, which for that we have to take into consideration another thing called entropy. Again, entropy is a concept which actually establishes the second law of thermodynamics, given by the symbol S, right? What does it say? Entropy is simply, just like everything in physics, you cannot explain something without using mathematics 100%. So, entropy in a rough sense, it's the degree of disorder or degree of chaos in a system, in a thermodynamic system rather, in a thermodynamic system. Okay, but that's a rough sense. Okay, entropy is the degree of disorder or degree of chaos in a thermodynamic system. But the mathematical definition is, for example, there is a system at a temperature T, okay, and you are supplying some amount of it, let's suppose a very small amount of it, right? Why? Okay, let's say you are supplying Q amount of heat. Well, the problem is, if you supply Q amount of heat to a system which is at a temperature T, wouldn't that increase the temperature of the system? Yes, it will, right? So let's make the definition precise by assuming that it's a very small amount of heat. So that simply means some heat which is very close to almost zero. We call that dq. Okay, very small amount of heat, so that it does not change the temperature of the system appreciably, right? In that case, the change in entropy, the small change in entropy, again ds, which is basically the change in entropy tending to zero, right? That's what we call ds, just like in calculus. So ds is equal to dq divided by t. That's the mathematical definition of entropy. Now, what if from state 1 to state 2, for example, the temperature from T1 to T2 changes, right, in the entire process? And how much would be the entropy? So basically, and let's suppose you are supplying a total amount of heat to the system. So in this case, the change in entropy delta S will be equal to the integration of ts from state 1 to state 2, and that is equal to integration from state 1 to state 2 dq by whatever the temperature and at that particular state in the intermediate state. Let's suppose at any intermediate state the temperature is T and you are supplying dq amount of heat, so dq by T is ds. So now you integrate from state 1 to state 2. That's it, simple. Okay, but what you need to understand here, that for any isolated system, see, second law of thermodynamics has various statements. It can be expressed in various statements. One statement is that heat cannot flow spontaneously from low temperature body to high temperature body. The other way to express that is simply, for no isolated system, delta, for every isolated system, right, any thermodynamic process would happen as long as change of entropy is greater than or equal to 0. That means the net change of entropy for any isolated system will never be less than 0. That is incorrect. It's a violation of second law of entropy. Okay, so this is the basically the most concise form of second law of thermodynamics. Okay, the net change of entropy in an isolated system has to be greater than or equal to 0 for any thermodynamic process possible. Okay, now from that we will prove the second part, that is, no operating system, no engine operating between the same two temperatures can have an efficiency greater than the ideal efficiency. So first of all, let's understand how the ideal efficiency and prove why no engine can be more efficient than this. How? Okay, again, let's suppose I have a temperature TH A heat engine operating between TH and TL, where of course TH has to be greater than TL, why H is high, L is low. Now this is engine E that has an efficiency N eta, and eta, let's suppose it's taking some amount of heat QH, rejecting some amount QL, and giving you some work W. So it is simply W by QH, or it is 1 minus QL by QH. Okay, that's the efficiency. Anyways, let's understand. So basically, Carnot's engine is a conceptual engine, which is a very beautiful concept. What it happens, there are 4 cycles or 4 strokes in this. First, it starts with certain pressure, goes through an isothermal expansion. See, the volume is increasing. Now, it's isothermal. So basically, QH of heat is supplied to it. It further goes into adiabatic expansion. In this, no heat transferred, or delta Q equals to 0. No heat is transferred. That means in this process, delta S is equal to 0. Adiabatic. Now, from this state, it goes through an isothermal. It goes through an isothermal compression again. Right. So basically, compression means it's rejecting heat QL, sorry, and then adiabatic, where delta Q is equal to 0. Okay, no change of heat. Adiabatic means the system, there is no heat supplied or taken out from the system. No heat exchange with the surrounding. Okay, so only in these two, and whatever is the area bounded by these 4 strokes, 1, 2, then 3, and then 4. This area, which let me mark it in a different color, this area within these 4 curves, basically it's a cyclic process, right? The gas has come back to the same state it started with. Okay, the area bounded is simply the work done, right? This area is the work done in the complete cycle. Now, that's the PV diagram, pressure, volume, plot. All right. Now that we have understood the PV diagram here, let's understand a corresponding diagram called the temperature and entropy diagram, TS diagram. Now here, the thing is, our approach is going to be a little different. Actually, the opposite. Why? Because we are the engine, right? The engine's temperature might vary, but what doesn't vary is the temperature of the the temperature of the source and the temperature of the sink. These two things are not changing, correct? However, heat is being supplied and heat is being removed. Heat is being removed from TH and heat is being removed from TH and heat is being supplied to the sink. So here, since heat is being supplied, let's suppose initially, let's suppose there was some higher temperature S2 here. So basically, since the reservoir is losing heat, so basically its entropy will decrease. Let's call it delta S1. And how much is that? How much of heat is it losing? Delta S1 is minus QH by how much? TH. Yes, because it's a constant temperature case, so we don't have to take the calculus approach here. But the sink changes from one state to the other, right? So let's say delta S2 will be QL by temperature, right? So basically it's not necessarily the same change. Delta S1 will not in magnitude, it will be the same, but yes, delta S2 will be equal to QL by T. And but here these are two processes, right? So for example, this is 1, which corresponds to 1, 2, 3, 4 in the PV diagram, that points. So basically this corresponds to first point, second, third, fourth. So 2 to 3 is an adiabatic process, no heat supply, so delta Q is 0. That also means change in entropy in this process is 0. Similarly, this is also an adiabatic process, 4 to 1. That means here the net exchange of heat is 0, so net change of entropy is also 0. So basically heat entropy decreases from 1 to 2 and for the source, and it actually increases for the sink from 3 to 4, right? So here it is increasing. Now understand delta S1 and delta S2, if you just consider the source or the sink, you might find the source entropy is decreasing. And that's possible. It's not a violation of the second law of thermodynamics, which says that the net change of entropy has to be greater than or equal to 0. Why? Because the sink and the source and the sink, they're not isolated. They are connected by our heat engine, right? What needs to be followed is that the net entropy, which is delta S1 plus delta S2, that must be greater than or equal to 0. Yes. So let's understand. Let's do the calculations. So here I will say that the net entropy, which is greater than or equal to 0, and that is delta S1 plus delta S2. And that means delta S1 is what? Minus QH by TH plus sorry, delta S2 is QL by TL. That must be greater than or equal to 0. Hence, if you take this one to the other side, it's going to be minus QH by TH is equal to minus QL by TL, right? Oh, sorry, it's a greater than or equal to symbol here, right? So basically, I'm taking it to the other side. Now, if I want to change the signs, QH by TH will be less than or equal to QL by TL. Yes or no, students? Why? If minus 5, okay, if minus 3 is greater than minus 5, 3 must be less than 5, right? So that's why it is. Now, let's do some manipulations. So if I bring QL to the left hand side denominator and take TH to the right hand side numerator, I'll have QH by QL is less than or equal to QL, it is less than or equal to TH by TL. Yes or no? That also means that, okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply flip the equation. Now, if 3 is less than 5, then 1 by 3 must be greater than 1 by 5, correct? Yes. So now, yeah, the same thing. QL by QH must be greater than or equal to TL by TH. Now I'm subtracting both of them, right? So if let's suppose if 5 is greater than 3, then 1 minus 5 must be less than 1 minus 3. Yes or no? That is minus 4 must be greater than minus 2. Because if I'm subtracting a bigger thing from the same thing, what I'm going to get is a smaller thing. So that means 1 minus QL by QH is less than or equal to 1 minus TL by TH. That means, students, what is this 1 minus QL by QH? I have already defined this. That's my efficiency. So, my efficiency must be less than or equal to the ideal efficiency 1 minus TL by TH. Let's call 1 minus TL by TL is ideal. Yes, that means any heat engine operating between the two temperatures TH and TL will have an efficiency less than or equal to the ideal efficiency. Yes, where ideal efficiency is equal to 1 minus TH, 1 minus TL by TH. Got it? So do not ever carry the misconception that 1 minus QH by QL is equal to 1 minus TL by TH, because QL by QH is equal to TL by TH. No, that's not correct. This is less than or equal to. This is the ideal value which is given by the second law of thermodynamics based on the concept that the net change of entropy of an isolated system must be greater than or equal to 0. It is equal to 0 if it's ideal, otherwise it's always greater than 0, which is the case in reality. Right? Hence, we have all proved the Carnot's theorem. Quadrant demonstrandum. So if you have any further questions, you can put that in the link which I've given, thephysicist.in/ask. That's where I'm mostly active. So you can put your questions there. All you have to create an account, just pretty simple process, and then put your questions there. I'll be answering that. If you put your questions which require math to answer, then if you do that in the YouTube, I won't be able to write equations in YouTube comment section, right? So that's it. See you in the next lecture. Till then, have a wonderful time. Bye bye and namaste.